Look, Silk Thread on the Zagi here, I feel like more recently we're not asking what Silk Thread can do anymore, or kind of asking what he can't. So many different heroes that he can sort of bring out. His puzzle was very effective. Okay, I like this from the Gladiators. This is cute. They're going to try and circle around. The Spitfire want to interrupt this a little bit here. Where are you going? Where are you? Oh, the high ground.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so nasty. Surefour's chilling in spawn. So he's waiting here. He can sort of walk out. What does he try to do?
I think he's going to either switch to Widowmaker. Yep. He's going to be the play. He's going to switch to Widow.
I'm going to call this the merry-go-round because it makes me laugh, makes me happy, and Surefour switches to the Widowmaker at just the right time. Closer drops down, and it's a day in the shooting range for Lane Roberts. The Canadian superstar unloads on the Spitfire. They get completely smashed. This is 200 IQ stuff. They're playing 10D underwater Mahjong out here.
The greatest set play in pro Overwatch history. You just witnessed it. The Gladiators are pulling out all the stops in the playoffs, and we're going to break down this play as well as a few others from the playoffs. The reason why this works is because in the first 15 seconds, the enemy can't press tab in order to see what full team composition you have, so the Gladiators is toying with the expectations of what London is going to assume how their team comp has to engage. What they're running out of spawn here, if Surefour went with them, would be what's called a GOATS comp. 3-3, I call it quad tank, same difference. Popularized by the briefly successful tier 2 Overwatch team named GOATS, and it's a team comp that needs to be able to just rush down your enemy entirely, overwhelm them with too much tanking, brawling, and because of its strength, the enemy has to be able to reposition to be ready for this engagement, and they actually do the right call. London pivots around, takes the high ground, and gets ready to catch the oncoming death ball, but of course, the famous bait and switch. Surefour wasn't with his team at all, but was back at spawn with the natural Widow perch that the attacking team gets, reenacting the Mendata cinematic. And there you have it, the greatest play that's ever been executed in Overwatch. And there's actually a lot more to this than you might think, and we'll show you in another example of them doing the same thing on a different map. But what's great about this is that it shows how a team engagement creates sight lines for your DPS anyway. Like, that's a natural principle that you have to think about in Team Overwatch. This is just the higher 9,000 IQ version of that, where they create a completely decoy engagement for the enemy to react to in order to make them fall victim to the devastating Widowmaker lines of sight. Of course, if Surefour doesn't hit these shots, this play doesn't go down in history. But since it does, we have the greatest play ever. What do you think this play should be called? I asked you guys on Twitter, and I got a few good suggestions. The spawn flank, the merry-go-round, the Mendata, 10D underwater Mahjong. I think quite simply the bait works. In any case, I want this play to get named. I think Overwatch League definitely should put it down in history like other sports leagues do, especially the NFL. This is as epic as the immaculate reception, the catch, the butt fumble. Absolutely beautiful stuff. Now, the practical side of Overwatch, the Gladiators actually use this same exact strategy in a bit of a different way earlier on Lijiang. Normally, the GOATS comp going to point waits here. They get onto point for free and force the enemy to come onto them, with the theory being if you capture the point first, it'll put you at a lead. Even if the enemy surrounds you, pokes you down, frags you more effectively, you're at least going to get some objective time to start. But playing with this expectation, they set up a perfect bait again. Because if you look carefully, Tracer is not only on a flank, he's hiding. Again, 15 seconds until they can even know what the full 6 is going to be from the Gladiators. And I scoured this VOD to see if Surefour's Tracer was moved up at all. Did he even get to this mega? Did he show himself to give any clue to London that this is what they were going to do? And no, he didn't. I'm pretty sure that he waited all the way at the end of this hallway, using the communication of his team on when they were going to go, and then triple blinked up to the Zenyatta to make a collapse engage into the backline, rushing them down and removing one of the highest value targets in the entire game of Overwatch. Killing the Zenyatta, and let's face it, covering the res, you're not going to be able to get your Mercy down there to revive them when the brawling death ball is nearby. And if you want to know what they were waiting for, they wanted the pharmacy to go aggressive to split the death ball to get the Mercy out of position so they couldn't save the Zen. This is big brain stuff as well, because what the pharmacy wants to do over the top of the death ball is just freely rain down above them, smashing them with splash damage, and if GOATS stay played here, London Spitfire actually had a pretty good chance to be able to win this team fight, even if Gladiators steal the point first. Control of the map matters more than a little bit of objective, of course, but once the Mercy is pulled towards the Pharah, that's when they know they can speed right after Bedoshin in the backline, burst him down for free, and not to mention, their comp is just good at brawling on the objective anyway. It really would have taken Prophet or Birdring to hit some really clean shots in order to take down, hopefully probably a healer or maybe Surefour's Tracer, but he's just avoiding any irrelevant challenges that you're not locking down anybody, really. Too much tanking and shielding to protect the shields up Gladiators comp here, and this big lead that they go on is just going to set the stage for the rest of this round in order to win the map. Surefour, of course, swaps off the Tracer, which, again, doesn't really work with this comp. It only works because they were doing that set rollout engagement into the back line. He goes on to the McCree, which, playing from a defensive point of view with this death ball, is incredibly scary, going to make it really hard for the Pharah to take any space. Once the Pharah gets on defense on these control maps, holding the point, the control of the map she has is incredible, but trying to take it back against an enemy hit scan is just really rough. Not to mention, Pharah as a character is a rough pick for London to begin with. Neither of their DPS really specialize in it, which is a problem because when Gladiators is running this Zarya Rein comp, Pharah is definitely the answer, but if you know your opponent isn't very good at Pharah, you're definitely going to be able to exploit it. Big brain stuff coming out of the LA Gladiators. Excellent play. They definitely deserved this series, but I thought it'd be cool to break down a few more important plays from the playoffs. A couple here on Li Jiang, and we're going to go on to look at the Boston-Philly game as well. Here's one that really highlights the potential of Winston. Gesture popping off right here on this play is the main reason why they even took one round at all. Let's watch that back carefully. If you drop the bubble mid-air, it doesn't start off as a dome, actually. It drops down as an entire sphere, actually. So you can use it as a projectile to encapsulate the enemy Pharah to get her to kill herself while she is using Barrage. Talk about big brain plays. That's one coming from the scientist there. And I don't know if he did this on purpose or not. If he did, that's insane. Gets the Primal Rage punch onto Big Goose's Mercy as he uses Guardian Angel to propel the knockback even further, which gets him a ring out kill that I didn't even know you could get, knocking him right outside of the map. Feels bad, man. Real sick Winston play. Well done, Gesture, but even better played was Gladiator's big retake here on Control Center. A ton of ultimates getting popped, a lot of big plays, and in the blink of an eye, LA Gladiators flips the point back when really in the defensive posture with all of the ults they had, you'd have to favor London. So how did they end up flubbing this engagement? Let's look at it again, this time in slow motion. Creeping onto the point, Prophet being overhead with Barrage should guarantee at least a frontline kill, and it does. Rockets raining from over top gets for a easy kill on iRemix, but Gladiators commits to this fight. They pop both support ults in order to give maximum survivability to their Mercy while she comes in for res, and in order to punish it, Gesture tries to turn the corner to drop the hammer. But if you look carefully, Void, the enemy Zarya, blocks it with a bubble. Shaz getting in the mix there too, body blocking with his Transcendence, and now they got their main tank back in action. And in the chaos of all of this, Hydration snuck over the top with his Barrage, and with the bubble to protect him, he melts down Gesture's Reinhardt, which opens up a lane for Remix to land the hammer, which if you look carefully, also got an assist on the kill on Bedoshin, indicating that the hammer also hit him. And that's heartbreaking because Bedoshin had Transcendence, which could have saved this fight. You might say Gesture committed too hard onto this choke battle to try to deny the res, but I think as soon as you see Shaz pop his Transcendence, Gladiators using their support ults early should have been a disadvantage. If Bedoshin got into place earlier to give his frontline Transcendence healing right at the end of when Shaz is wearing off, they would have had a massive advantage. Probably giving Birdring an opportunity to use his Dragon, which likely would have been the difference maker in this fight. These really complicated Overwatch ult fights are crazy, and it's hard to figure out the order of operations sometimes, but I think don't be too greedy on defense. It might be easy to think, well, we want to conserve ults to be able to draw out this defensive hold, but if the enemy's popping a ton of ults, respond immediately. immediately. Spare no expense because losing the map is way more important, especially on Control Center where they could have just played aggressive at the choke anyway, even if they were at an ult disadvantage. Being on defense is its own advantage because you're allowed to decide what choke you hold and how aggressive you want to play. It's this type of team play mishap that really is putting London lower in performance than I think a lot of their fans would like to see, and you can't fail at that against the Gladiators because that's what they do best. The next play we're going to break down was a really close matchup on Eichenwald between the Boston Uprising and the Philly Fusion. Boston actually had a pretty decent chance to win this map, despite having less time in the bank originally. They got the cart all the way up Streets phase, meaning that a decent defense probably should have been able to get them the win here, but they crucially mishandle the opportunity they had to close out the game here at the Streets phase. Granted, Philly does kind of waltz in and is able to pop off with their snipers. They're definitely going to be one of the scariest double sniper teams in the playoffs, but at this point for Boston, all hope isn't lost. Philly tries to storm the castle because they know that high ground position is going to be a nightmare for them to push down from the low ground, and Boston knows that too. So, note, flings the self-destruct down the stairs, forcing them to scurry back, getting the kill on the support, of course, but more importantly, winning them the defensive side of this engagement. You can just see how important this was to this fight, because despite Philly trying to pop a bunch of ults to escape out of this choke, the defensive dragon is going to be better because they can put it on the cart, punishing that. Now, all that has been good thus far, and the clock's ticking down, getting down to 10 seconds here, but two crucial mistakes were made. In the chaos of the engagement, even though they look to be up, Gamsu secures the fight win with his bongo, and I think he could have been more greedy with that. A minor mistake, and hard to know in the heat of battle, but I still think a mistake nonetheless, with how that fight was feeling, at least from the bird's eye view, but that's easy for me to say. But something that I think is fairly inexcusable is how passive they went on this engagement. They send just their Orisa and Widow on this hold, and they don't try to abuse the fact that the enemy has to rush to the cart coming out of spawn, and I think you have to do one or the other here. Either you hold from the castle mostly and shoot down on your opponents, making it expensive for them to come out of this choke, similar to how they won the previous fight, or if you're going to be peeking this at all, why not send your whole team to go spawn trap? Granted, Carpe did have sights until the waning moments here, but as soon as that infrared sights gets popped off, go get some flanking angles to be able to crossfire in this situation. Because they only put their toe in the water of the spawn trap, they had to abandon it immediately without forcing any ults out of Fusion, which is a huge deal because Fusion comes back now with Sado's supercharger, meaning that this cart brawl is overwhelmingly going to go in favor of the attacking team, and if they played more aggressive at the choke, you could have forced the enemy to have to use supercharger off the cart, which perhaps you would have lost that fight anyway, but you put yourself at a much bigger chance to win it if the enemy has to use ults to try to escape spawn rather than setting up cleanly on the cart. And although Boston does come back and has a chance to retake, seeing as they already get another fight here, now you're retaking into Carpe's Widow. Their snipers are set up, they're ready to absorb this engagement on the cart, and in another universe, maybe Boston does make some plays on this retake here, but that's why you just can't play assuming you're going to get another clean fight. What I'm calling for here, you might think is kind of an outrageous idea, but it's really not. Here's an example of Rogue using this principle in order to use the map to create an earlier engagement that's really going to milk the time off the clock while the enemy has to regroup. Granted, the tanks and the damage and the entire meta is really different from this old Contenders game, but the principles of how you play the map don't really change. I fully believe if Boston sent most, if not all of their team in order to spawn trap this way, to create damage angle threats from around the clock tower, and possibly even leaving someone back on the other side of the payload as well, so that you can have a crossfire from either end, I think they win this map. Because how else are you going to get Sado to pop the supercharger in a less than ideal situation? The only way is to start hitting them with damage earlier and pressuring them in spawn, making it expensive for them to go anywhere. But their reluctance to do that, I think, was their downfall. The last clip we're going to look at is the Philadelphia Fusion's single healer attack. Oddly enough, single mercy heals is quite popular in the Overwatch League right now, and it already has been popular for quite some time in the Contenders scene if you haven't seen that. This is a byproduct of a few things going on with the meta. Hanzo, Widow are the strongest characters in the damage slot, but that also means going a triple tank can give you more room for error in how your frontline plays, because of course they can't instantly be one-shot. And since you're mostly playing around burst kills anyway, you're not really playing for healing in any case. There isn't a bunch of sustained damage coming after you that you need healing for. You kind of need to play to control the map and then res if someone gets picked off. And because they're cheating in this Tracer pick instead of a Zenyatta here, their ability to kill tanks and heal their own tanks is going to be weaker, but their map control is going to be a lot better as long as their tanks play disciplined enough to not die. Because you still have the 2 snipers that are going to go for picks on their own, but also in the chaos of all of this, they're able to send Hotba on a mission to go flank the enemy's Widow, and he gets a real clean 1 clip on him, setting up for this fight to work. And what's even scarier is Sato is way ahead on his supercharger charge rate, and they're able to pop sights, dragon, and bongo down, shredding the enemy's front line, taking control of the map, and realistically, this is a defensive team comp with the single heal, tons of firepower. In fact, that's kind of how I've called these comps in the past, these Junkertown style comps, where you rely only on the Mercy to heal and maybe res the odd pickoff, but overall it gives you the necessary firepower in order to punch through these defenses. On different maps like Junkertown or something, you can envision a different damage character in that slot. This time, because they sent the Tracer on the flank, they picked her, but the principles remain the same with this comp. It just depends on how you want to hold. And what all these pro teams have been favoring is this triple tank with the Roadhog in the flex slot, kind of like they have done in the past with Junkertown, because the Roadhog can heal himself. That helps out the team healing, makes it a little bit easier on the Mercy. And you might think, well, just dive the Mercy. It's that simple, right? Just take her out and you win. But the problem is, dive in general hates triple tank. It doesn't want to just go in and fight them, so as long as the Mercy stays relatively safe, it's going to be incredibly expensive to get past them. They've got the halt hook combination, Roadhog bursts down the tanks, and all the while you have snipers way out in the distance who are looking for angles and pickoffs on their own right. So as Boston attempts to do here, yes, they do go off and get the Mercy, eliminating the heals, but they used all of their cooldowns to do so. They have to be able to get the Mercy and get out, fail to do so the push is over. But with so many members dying on the Fusion side, they have to give up some map and have to swap the Orisa to Winston so that he can have a faster run back, and Boston rushed to go pressure the point. But this is kind of a mistake, because if you watch my How to Counter Rein Zarya video, whenever you have good brawling tanks, or just triple tank in general, the call remains the same. Ignore tanks, fight squishies. They don't set up to go look for the Widowmaker. Mistakes isn't even able to get his Dragon Blade off. Ideally, what they would want to do is as soon as they see that the Philadelphia Fusion tanks are coming back on the low ground, leave them. You're not getting the point yet. You have to go kill the squishies. Getting caught up with the tanks is just wasting time. You gotta take out their carries so that your Genji can carry. They send Mistakes to go fight the Widow. He gets sniped. If by some miracle he wins that duel, things are a lot different. You're gonna have to use strategy in order to set him up if you want to overcome superstars like Carpe. But the game's still not over, even with all of that going wrong, because Kelix has his Valkyrie, Mistakes has his Blade. They engage with both of those, and Mistakes just kind of gets wrecked. Pulls out the Dragon Blade here, but he's just surrounded by tanks. These are not the targets he was looking for, and it's hard to tell, but it's actually a big brain Dragon Strike through the map that goes to the Mega that starts whittling down his health so severely. And all in all, it's just a tough engagement, man. If you can't kill Carpe and EQO, they're going to get value. They hit shots, and not to mention Sato cleans up the back end of it with Primal Rage. He is the final boss, and out of desperation, or maybe just a big panic, Note wastes his self-destruct, which maybe could have even been the difference maker on the final last-ditch attempt, but now they end up going at it again with no ultimates. And importantly, on the defense, Philly chases them into spawn. You don't want them to get away. You want to be able to control the engagement and thin them out as much as you can. Knowing when you have to be aggressive on defense is so important, and that really just pulls the rug out from under Boston and any chance they had of having a miraculous final attack, which is kind of the opposite of what happened to Boston's defense on Eichenwald. Sick games today, guys. If you enjoyed the breakdown today, please be sure to leave the video a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please subscribe, because we upload each and every day, so you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Linked in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.